Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for checking out another video. This is Nick again, and in this video, I'm going to have a bit of a kind of negative topic, a thing that I think most of us don't want to think about, and it's kind of clunky. Um, but I think probably within about a year to a year and a half, we are due for a recession. Might be a fairly minor one, might be a big one, but for those of us who have been through this kind of cycle in the past, um, you can sort of see telltale signs and things. But one of the big ones is um, if you look at economics, one of the big principles of economics is that economies are driven by positivity, right? So if people are very positive about how things are going, generally they're going to spend more money and do more. And if anything, the last few years have been anything but positive, right? We've been in a very negative place in the world, in the U.S., and in a lot of other kind of scenarios. So there's definitely some things going on where um, it's not looking fantastic. So I wanted to talk about how to go prepare for a recession. So assuming this is going to be starting in about a year and a half, it's not going to happen tomorrow. And unlike the housing recession, things like that, most recessions don't blow up, right? They kind of lean into a little bit and then boom, you're in a recession and it kind of gets worse for a while and then it gets better. So I'm hoping, and the way that this one feels is that it's going to be a little bit more gradual. So we're going to have some time to prepare for it. So it's not great that we're going to have a recession, but at least we're going to have some opportunities to prepare for it, right? So the first thing to do, even if you have a job, even if you want to stay at your job, even if your company seems healthy, is you want to start looking at job postings. Why? Well, you want to kind of see the stuff that's available right now, and you want to see the kind of things that people are looking for, right? So this is going to help you develop a plan. One of the pieces that you're going to want to start putting into place now is what are the things that I can do to make sure that I am somebody who is desirable from a employer's point of view, right? So start looking at job postings. Look for the gaps in your current experience and your current skill set that people are looking for and the kinds of roles that you want. So try to make yourself the ideal candidate. You can do other things like put together potential resumes for potential kinds of jobs. Because one of the things that generally you want to go do when you apply for a job is to have a resume that is tailored to that particular position. So if you know that you're going to be applying for maybe DevOps positions and site reliability engineering positions and like storage administration positions and whatever it is, you can make a version of your resume for each one. It's not going to take you a huge amount of time to do it, but you can go spend cycles while you currently are employed. That way, if down the road you suddenly need to start looking for a job, it's one less thing that you need to go do, right? You can start spending the time on that, and by reviewing, kind of things, over time, you can kind of get that idea, right? So, so make sure your current your skills are current, and that you have current skills, right? So two different ways of kind of saying that, but that's a big piece. So looking at the job postings will help you do that. And then what you want to go do is you want to start brushing up on things. So you can do this a ton of different ways. There's, videos on YouTube, you can get books, you can take classes, whatever your particular method of learning is, try to go figure out those skill gaps and make sure that you have the ability to drop into a new role. So let's say, for example, in your environment, you use SaltStack, right? So SaltStack is great. It's a great way of doing management and sort of administration systems and change control and all that kind of stuff, pushing things to systems. It's similar to like an Ansible or a Puppet configuration management kind of system. It's not the most popular though. It's great. I think actually there's some really nice aspects of SaltStack. It's a pull architecture versus a push architecture, where I think is much more scalable than a lot of the other ways that other systems do it. But I don't want to get too off topic. But let's say you're heavily invested in SaltStack, and then you go look at all of the, job postings, and you say, oh well, they're really looking for Ansible and Puppet, and that's your particular area. Those are the big ones. It's probably not going to be that difficult for you to go ahead and learn Puppet, or Ansible, whichever one you pick to do based on the postings that you see. But let's say there's 4 or 5 things like that, right? Each one is going to take a little bit of time. So let's get started learning this, right? So whether you do the videos or whether you set up a project or a lab or however you go do it, right? So get that ball rolling. So have those things in queue, right? So if you're working for a large company, one of the things that typically large companies do is they invest in their employees with training, right? So I would start looking at scheduling training, right? Try to go ahead and take advantages of those programs, whether this is degree stuff or this is certifications. If you are in a storage class and, or a storage kind of role, and your, NetApp certification or your EMC certification or whatever it is has expired, try to convince your boss to send you to a training class that will help prep you for that certification, because a lot of times they come with that. So you can go ahead and get the voucher for your certification and take that class. If nothing else, sign up for one of those like lynda.com sites or one of those. Not all of them are created equal. I think Linux training is a good one. There's don't do Udemy. Udemy steals people's courseware. They don't. I don't know how well known that is, but there's a big thing where people will like literally just rip someone's course and then they'll post it up there, and then they'll start selling it. And Udemy doesn't prevent people from doing that. So don't support them. They're not necessarily the best. So start investing in your training and things like that. Network. Start going to user group meetings. Start going to meetups. Start doing all the kind of networking stuff that you can think of, so that in a year or so you've built up a really nice network, right? And as smarmy as this might sound, one of the other things that you might do is try to network within your company, right? So try to make sure that people have a positive opinion of you. Give little presents to people. Man, I was over at the thing and I saw this for you, blah, blah. Stuff like that. It seems smarmy, but little pieces, little kind of things, and that sort of effort, it sort of builds, and sort of helps you maintain, good relationships with people. It doesn't need to be anything big. Bringing donuts, right? A gift may not have been the best term, right? So it doesn't need to be like a set of golf clubs, right? But if somebody is really into comic books or something like that, just maybe, hey man, I happened to be going by this comic book store the other day, and I remember you mentioned this. Give them a comment. That's $5, right? If that's somebody you're going to be working with, or something like that. It doesn't necessarily need to be just your managers either. Your peers are great. It's really, really low cost kind of stuff, but it just sort of, making sure people have a good opinion of you, right? It's a little smarmy. Personally, I feel kind of gross and uncomfortable doing those things, so I don't do very much of it unless it's kind of authentic. But I try to authentically look for things where I can do nice stuff for my coworkers and other people that I work with. So that's a big one. Another one is to have a side hustle. So you are working in IT or you're trying to get into IT. So this one is more for people who are currently in existing IT roles than people who are trying to get into this. But it applies for both. Um, you have skills, right? And a lot of times they're things that we just sort of take for granted. So helping somebody set up a website, um, a lot of people who've worked in IT for years, it's like, who would need that? A lot of people. So if you set up your own website that says like, hey, I do consulting stuff, and you start off now with fairly low rates because you don't necessarily need that money right now, right? We're just sort of prepping for the future. This is going to allow you, again, sort of going back to the previous thing, to network and to build a set of clients, right? Because when you do good work for people, they're going to then in turn, recommend you to other people. And then you can sort of get that ball rolling so that by the time the recession hits, if you need another income stream, right, because you lost your primary one, you have that, right? So that's something you can go ahead and look at. Another one is an oh shit fund. Not the best way of saying it, maybe, but it's money for when you say oh shit, and you might say oh shit because I lost my job. So having some money tucked away for that is really really helpful. And if you go look at financial experts and things like that, they're going to go say 6 months to a year as an emergency fund. And I would potentially even try to do more than that if you can. Now, obviously, saving up a year's worth of income in a year is going to be very difficult. But think about trying to minimize your spending now, right? So you can go ahead and reduce your expenses, and then that's going to help you. The lower your expenses are, the easier it is to have a year's worth of your baseline. So lower your expenses, save everything you can, and then sort of try to prepare for kind of this coming down the pipeline. And this may sound really negative, right? This may be really 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 negative, but it may not be in a year. It may not be in a year and a half. But economies are cyclical. So even if you do all this stuff and we don't have a recession in a year, we're going to have a recession at some point. So it's a good idea to have this kind of stuff in play. And actually, there's one thing I forgot. There's a couple other things I forgot to put in here. But another big one is for those of you guys who are currently working, make sure you're documenting the value that you create for your company. And this is something I'm probably going to do another video on, but when you do that, put it in business terms. So you want to do things like document how much money you saved on a particular project, things like that, and have a document that has all that stuff in it. And maybe once a month or once a quarter or something like that, you send it to your manager so that they have a list of like your current things that you've done over the year. Never hurts to do kind of stuff like that. I mean, you might be already doing these kind of things, and I hope most of you are doing something along those lines. So if you're not, start doing that. If you are, make sure that you have the sort of business aspect of it sort of taken care of, so that you're not just saying these are things that I did technically, but you're also sort of translating that. Because at some point if there were going to be like a round of layoffs, your boss is probably going to have to justify the employment of the people they work for to the person above them. And the person above them may not necessarily be as technical and completely understand what you're doing, right? So having it already put into a format that's going to help them be able to get that stuff across is really, really useful. So I hope we don't have a recession, but we might. And if we do, it's a good idea to sort of already have the things in place to protect against that happening. So, We'll assume that we're not going to. We're going to hope that we're not going to. But, as the saying goes, right? Hope for the best, plan for the worst, and you'll always be prepared for what comes down the pipeline. So, yeah. So think about that. Don't let it get you down. Don't let you get too stressed out. But start planting the seeds so that you have, the reserves for when things get a little bit lower. So that's the idea. All right. Have a great rest of your day. Take care of yourself. I'll see you guys in another video. Thanks again for watching another video. I was told by a YouTube expert, and I don't know if this is true, but if you click down here below to subscribe, not only will you be able to watch more of my videos where I talk about IT career stuff, but it will also cure racism. Like that's all it took. I had no idea. Click the subscribe button, unless, you love racism, which I hope you don't. So probably should click the subscribe thing.